Good afternoon. My name is Nurten Ural, and thank you for the organization of this, and thank you, Peter, Steve, that I know very well, and Karen. My family came as a refugee here, and we are immigrants, but I also wear a number of different hats. I am the CEO for the Turkish Resource Center of North America, which is affiliated with Prima Civitas. And I'm also the president, first of all, honorary consul general for Turkey, and currently I'm the president of the Concert Corps of Michigan. An association or an organization that is underutilized. 58 members of the Concert Corps, which are honorary consul generals as well as consul generals, that are here in Michigan and very, very much underutilized for what it's doing. They're ready to help with any of the immigration issues. They're here, so please use them, all of the organizations that are here. We are here to help Michigan. We are here to help with the economic development of Michigan, and we are here to help with the community that probably is 99% of Michigan that is represented with these 58 members.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Linda Lee Tarver. I'm wearing several hats, but one is here on behalf of Secretary of State Ruth Johnson on access to identification and different things, so I came here for that. I also sit as a Civil Rights Commissioner with the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, and so happy to be here with that hat. But I am also a native born and very interested in how we communicate our message of those who are natural born and how we are also bringing them along with our new initiative, because this is fabulous. I 100% support the governor and all that he's doing with this. I know that it's the right thing to do, but how do we communicate that we have not forgotten those who are in Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, Benton Harbor, our educational institutions, and how are we helping bringing up the level through our Department of Education and other things? How do we communicate that message that we have not forgotten our youth who are still here? My children, college grads, and some have moved out of state. Unfortunately, how do we retain homegrown as well?
Well, first of all, I think it's appropriate that, Intern in Michigan launched several years before UPI launched, and that absolutely we ought to be thinking first and foremost about our native born and how to assist our native born. I'll reiterate my comments that, we've not sought special incentives here for the international community because of those reasons. For example, and I would argue that, absolutely we need a STEM policy for native born folks before or in addition to a STEM retention program with international students. Those things are clear. What we found is that, that typically you start talking about immigrants, new Americans, international community, and the already always way of listening from the general population is they're here to take my jobs, and they've caused economic harm to the state and to the globe. And so in part, traditionally when I'm presenting, it's to sort of, challenge and shock that notion that actually what we've seen is the strength of this region of the economy over the last decade in particular has come from the international community. In particular, two of our programs I'm very proud of in terms of how we approach it. So the Welcoming Michigan and Welcoming America program, one of the reasons we brought Welcoming America here is because of their perspective. They talk about what are the impacts on the host community and the receiving community, and are as focused on that, in fact more focused on that, I would say, than immigrant integration. So they don't provide ESL and citizenship classes. They're focused on, hey, Sterling Heights, this was a community that was largely, it was 98% white, and it's now 20% foreign born over the last 20 years. That's a challenge. That's a challenge. That's not based on any kind of xenophobic or any of that stuff. I always say to people, I live in the city of Detroit, if we could bring back, what we largely lost over the last 10 years were 250,000 middle-class African Americans. We brought them back tomorrow, we'd have a challenge. There would be conflict about the neighborhoods that they came into and where they would locate. So we do a very good job in that program. And as I said, I think our Prosperous program, which was launched originally as a microenterprise program, it is 85% African American and is doing more work, frankly, in the African American community. But I think your points are incredibly important, and I know that this show, you've seen me present now at least twice, if not 3 times, is not our communications plan is not to communicate to the general public. That's not my target audience. We don't have the resources to combat all the messages people get about immigration. Our target audience is for what we would call the untapped and the undecided. So folks who are open to the message, or folks who support the message but aren't sure how to get involved. And we've been pretty judicious in where we've gone and what we've gone to. I've tried to avoid CNN or something like that in terms of the work that we've been doing. But I appreciate what you had to say, and I think at least in my communication, I know I probably, given we give statistics that say international people are outproducing native born, I mean, my reaction in hearing those statistics is like to kind of clench and sort of say, what are you trying to say, that the native born are talented or what? That's not what we're trying to say. We're just trying to have people open their eyes to that we can all do this together.
I think we need to bring urgency to this. Is this on? Yeah. The historical analogy might be Sputnik. And in 1957, the Russians scared us, and 12 years later, we had a man on the moon. And if we can't bring urgency to raising the number of STEM talented, educated people, and so it's not an answer, it's just a call to urgency. And I think it's a national security issue at that level.
And also from the state perspective, just about a little over a month ago, the governor held his second economic summit, this time in Grand Rapids. And one of the topics of discussion that came up in the region that I was in for the summit was exactly that, in terms of, but even more so about notifying students, children at an earlier age of what options are out there in terms of skilled trades, STEM, trying to get people interested in those areas, even younger ages, so reaching out into middle school and high school, starting at that level, so that as those individuals are going through their schooling, they have a better idea of what opportunities are out there. And again, this will be for everyone. And tomorrow actually is the Governor's Education Summit at the Kellogg Center at MSU. So I would assume that some of the conversations that happened at the Economic Summit will continue on through the Education Summit and are directed at some of those issues that you mentioned.
And I forgot to add, we are thinking about these issues. So the Global Great Lakes Network in Pittsburgh is having, the only topic that's having 2 sessions is African American immigrant relations. So we're having a keynote and then a separate discussion
Let
session.
me know how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
that's
come to
good.
Pittsburgh. You can- No cost to
Pittsburgh.
come.
We have a question over here.
Yes, my question, or partially comment, partially question, but one of the unifying factors for anybody, even regional differences, internationally differences, culture and arts have a great way of bringing people together. And I was wondering, first of all, what, if anything, any of your respective programs are doing to kind of help bridge that gap, because especially in colleges, I mean, at my university, Saginaw Valley, about 6% of our student undergrad population are international students. And there were a great number of programs that were sponsored by the university as a way to kind of expose different classes, different ethnicities, different cultures to each other. But in the hustle and bustle of obtaining your undergrad degree, you didn't have time to do all of these things. And so kind of looking beyond the academic culture, academic side, if you could speak to anything, again, arts and culture related that your respective programs are doing to help
Our welcome mat includes cultural organizations, and we've done some things. You know, frankly, you could help me convince Makaka to fund the grants that I submitted that they denied to do a passport to the arts that would be designed for the international community. But we continue to partner with a lot of folks. We're doing something with the Detroit Design Festival next year. We work with the Great Lakes Woodwind String. So it is a part, but we're an economic development initiative, and so it hasn't been the primary part. We looked where there were gaps, and I'm sorry I can't see you, but we looked where there were gaps in existing networks. So we don't do any ESL or citizenship because there were lots of groups that did that, but what we did do is create a database and an online searchable tool that didn't exist to help them. So the same thing around arts and culture. There's lots of international arts and culture. We would look for places where the business community or others could fill in gaps.
Peter, we have a number of things on
Certainly,
campus. Yeah.
the amount of outside the academic arena, the way, if you knew what I knew in terms of how many people are eager to share their culture, eager to bring their culture here, and how do we mobilize that and engage that? And in my office, we certainly incentivize that. We have grants that we give student groups to do that. Now, taking it to the next level, which is the topic for today, which is how do we create jobs, how do we take them to the next level, that really is that's what lies behind your question, and I'm not sure I know how to make that next step, because the U.S. immigration law isn't going to change quickly about that. But, you know, it just reinforces the level of complexity of the talent that this group brings. We are fortunate that they're here. If not temporarily, we certainly want to encourage them to stay longer. They bring so much.
I do want to mention that we have a number of things on campus, activities on campus. It seems like every day I could stay busy at work just attending these things. The Great Lakes Folk Festival is more of a community gathering of.
And we're going to show every game of the World Cup in the International Center on a very big screen. So if you want to, we're not going to turn it into a sports bar, but the idea of soccer fans and getting critical mass of the soccer community, because there's nothing better for the globe than soccer. It's the world's game.
One of the things that I've enjoyed, every Friday, Peter's office hosts an international coffee and tea. And so you have one room dedicated to that, and students who are looking, they're new to campus and they're looking for those relationships, and they know that they're going to meet someone else who isn't really familiar with campus, and they can connect. But those things are constantly going on campus. I think what your office is unique in doing, Peter, is bringing together the multicultural event, where I find that oftentimes on campus you hold something, but it recruits one single region rather than an integration of those regions. So that's our challenge. Sir?
Hi, my name is George Pena, and my question is in regards to STEM. High school juniors and seniors, are we tracking the number of programs involved with STEM in your numbers? Because to me it's fascinating and also kind of sad and at the same side, or the flip side, that you have homegrown students that are actually starting these programs at high school as juniors and seniors. For example, at the Capital Area Career Center, they're doing some wonderful things with STEM projects, etc. And I'm just wondering, are any of your organizations tracking that? Or are the numbers skewed at that sense? And also, follow-up question is like, the ESL, I would imagine in the Detroit area, or even right here in Lansing, one of the high schools has, I think, 38 different languages at a high school. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that ESL does come into play. So STEM, that's the buzzword for many high school programs, and where a lot of grant money is involved. So.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Wait, 1 minute.
Yeah, so we, if you go to the Global Detroit website, go to resources, you can find the original report. It's the 200-page dissertation I never got to write in grad school. There's an appendix of 50 different ideas, and working in the high schools with particularly first-generation immigrants and dealing with the educational issues and the higher dropout issues and those issues is one of the ideas that we had in there that was being really championed by Jim Jacobs, the president of Macomb County Community College. It just didn't, we had a voting process and it ended up out of like number 15 instead of in the top 10. I would say we've been, similar to our microenterprise work. You can't talk about immigrant retail and microenterprise in the city of Detroit without talking about African-American retail and enterprise in the city of Detroit. So similarly, we have thought we can't talk about STEM and opening up the tech economy in this state to the international community beyond which it's already been open without addressing, frankly, what has been, the numbers of African-American and Latino ownership in the venture capital space is appalling. Approximately 2% between the two communities when they make up close to, I think, 28% of the population of the country. So one of our speakers in Pittsburgh we had in for a couple days. His name is Jonathan Holefield. He's actually a native of the region and has been a real strategic thinker about how to disrupt that and how to open up the STEM jobs to not just native born, but to really to communities, two ethnic communities that have largely have not succeeded in those areas for a variety of reasons, structural, all those kinds of things. I run a small, traditionally, I haven't even done this work full time over the last 5 years. We run a small organization that's had usually less than $200,000 a year of a budget. And so we brought Mr. Holefield to key players who I think eyes were opened by the message, and we sort of said, we'll sign up to be at the table, but our focus is on the international community, and I can't fix the STEM thing, but I'm happy to. I think your question's an important one. I think highlighting those issues are really critical, and I think that if we're going to be talking about opening up some of these things to international talent, we have to have that conversation at the same time of access within our own communities.
Thank you. Last question.
I have some comments. One is that the foreign students who come here are supported by their governments usually, and they have no worries about money. My grandson is going to Vanderbilt next year, and it will cost $70,000 a year. And you can't just disparage the teaching community. And also, some of these people that are foreigners have families, and they're scared of their kids not getting a good education and the safety for their kids in their neighborhoods. So I read Detroit has this problem for some of the corporations don't want the people that they want to attract don't want to come. And so I don't understand the American attitude toward the students and then running down to schools and then expecting high results.
Thank you.
Well, let me just respond to one part of that. The biggest growth area that we've experienced at MSU has been at the undergraduate level. So historically, I think there were a lot of governments that did support students, and I think that has changed. And I could have added that in my presentation, I should have. But the undergraduates are almost all full fee paying students by their families. So the governments are not supporting them. Now, the Saudi Arabians, they have big money that comes with them, but the biggest numbers that we're seeing now are from China, and these are coming from private families. So we're seeing a changed landscape in terms of higher education as an export industry, in terms of who's coming. Graduate, we used to be a graduate level university, and we've switched to an undergraduate level very, very quickly over the last 7 years. It's been interesting to watch.
Okay. Well, I think.
Sorry, does that affect the admissions for native-born Michiganders?
This question comes up a lot. That's a great question, and it's an important question. So what the admissions office will answer is that qualified Michiganians have not been denied admissions as they're changing, because they are trying to make sure that the experience that Michigan State students have, it's not just one big Michigan high school. And they want to have diversity, so that means out of state, out of country is part of that. And so, if as long as we can say it's competitive, but a qualified Michigan student should still be able to come into Michigan State University.
Have you seen a decrease in admissions for Michigan-born versus foreign-born?
Well,
undergrad?
in Michigan, you're seeing a declining number of high school graduates. And so we're lucky at Michigan State, our applications are still very strong. I sit on the enrollment management committee, so I know what it is, but I think what's going to struggle now are some of the regional universities in the state. And I think there are just not enough high school graduates. It's going to decline, and there's going to be an impact on Lake Superior State, and that's to name one. I'm blanking on some of the others, but I think because of the brand, maybe Michigan State will be okay, but how the state looks at a declining high school population and what's our higher education ability to serve them is an important conversation.
Thank you, Peter.
I'll give you mine.
Thank you. Well, certainly there's lots to do. We talked about some policy changes at the federal level, some need for suggestions at the state level, and I think we know who to contact with those. We also talked about preparing communities for becoming more global and perhaps presenting a second language into our school curriculums. I heard on the radio this morning that there's an effort or a drive to turn STEM into STEAM, which would include the arts, and that I like that idea. So lots to do, and the great thing is that we do have those good ideas, and we do have some direction moving forward. Your comments have been, and your questions have been very, very informative to our panel, and I'm sure you appreciate what they've brought to the table as well. I'm amazed that these actually got to our panelists. This is a new entrepreneur I want to support. Cake Saru Bake Shop. She was in the state news a couple of weeks ago. She's an MSU alum, and she does human resources during the day, and she does Cake Saru at night. And I'd like to present, it's a box full of goodies, and they're so good. But they did make it here, and they're for our panelists. And I'd like you to help me thank our panelists as well with applause. Thank you. And then finally, I would like to give our panelists the last word, and I'm hoping that they will not necessarily summarize their comments, but really put you guys in charge of this moving forward and encourage you and give you something to do, a task to do, in an effort to make your communities more global. Karen, would you like to kick it off?
Can you repeat your question again?
What can they do?
What can they do?
What can they do?
I would say continue to be engaged and interested, and bring your comments, your thoughts to us. And I hope I speak for all of us. One of the things that I know, Bingoy, the director of the Michigan Office for New Americans, and I, and our, about a little over 1 month on the job, and his little over 2 months on the job. One of the things that we're really interested in is hearing from people and hearing from stakeholders on what issues they see, especially within the state of Michigan, for, again, any barriers or perceived barriers with regard to the forward movement for foreign nationals as being some of our economic developers, or part of the solution with regard to economic development for the state, as well as I mentioned, bringing any new ideas to us. I think being engaged and staying interested as you are today, and thank you for coming, is really is really encouraging, and also what we need is for more people to stay engaged.
So there's a one-pager that we posted in the website for this that lists all the Global Detroit programs that we helped launch, and they all are interested in volunteers. So whether it's GTRI or Welcoming Michigan, and I see Athena in the back. And,
Volunteer for GTRI?
yes. Welcoming Michigan,
Thanks for being
Prosperous to train micro-entrepreneurs, Upwardly Global, they're looking for people to do mock interviews. So there's a million ways to get involved. If you go to the Global Detroit website, again, globaldetroit.com, you can sign up to get our newsletter, and what you'll see in the newsletter next couple of months is this Cultural Ambassadors Program as a way to be an ambassador here for the state for young and new talent and international students and international companies. And then I appreciate everyone's comments. I mean, I hope that you take away that this is an opportunity for us. This by no means is the only public policy we should be pursuing, and investing in our K-12 education system is critical. And I, as a partisan Democrat, I'm not going to get into my thoughts on the matter. I spent 6 years in this building doing that, and was asked to come talk about immigration. So
Next forum, right? Peter?
Last recruitment pitch is CVIP. For those of you who live in Greater Lansing, they are always looking for ways, and it's maybe not as much economic development, but again, friendship with an international student can be life-changing. It can really, you get a chance to see, connect with the world, and they can give you that aha moment that you just never thought of before until they said something. And I just think it's been, for me, fabulous personally, and I would share it all with you to go on that kind of life journey. Open up your lives that way.
It's absolutely true. And a CVIP that's a model that can be replicated in any community. So it's a good idea. So if you can get with them and learn what they're about and how they get engaged with international communities, I think that's an excellent idea. I do want to reinforce that we have the presentations as well as the information that Stephen noted on our website. And I picked up a few others along the way in your conversation, your comments, and with our panelists, a few links that I think would be important for us to post. So I hope you'll see that as a resource, ipsr.msu.edu. I think we're all done for the day. I would do a quick pitch for our May 23rd forum, which is going to be, it's more about the hidden economy. It's about the imbalance and the adjudication of our young people, and what we're some ideas on how we can really address that. Actually, it's more than ideas. We have a very solid action plan put together on how we can tackle that. And so I think I know that it'll be very interesting. I hope to see you there. Thank you.